Louisville, national champions, 1980.
Cardinals have won the national championship. 75th NCAA college basketball champions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back tonight to another episode of the Third Banner Pod. I am your host tonight, Kyle, and I am joined by Connor and Patrick, and we have a lot to break down tonight. Obviously, Louisville football got their new schedule today. We will talk about that in a little bit. We are going to break down some coaching candidates. I think we're finally to that point where we've talked about basketball, the games, and it just seems to be like the same thing. And I think a lot of people are just looking for new content to discuss. And I think it's time. I think it's time that we start talking about the future. It's more pleasant conversation, to say the least. So how you guys been?
I'm all right. It's been a long 2.5 weeks.
It has been a long 2.5 weeks, and I don't know if you mean in your personal life, but I mean as a Louisville fan, it definitely has.
Well, that too, but it's been a long 2.5 weeks.
Yeah. So, Pat, what about you?
I'm good, man. I'm excited to talk coaches tonight.
Me too.
Look at what we may have on tap for next year. You know, we can hash on the games, you know, like we always do, but I feel like we're starting to repeat ourselves. So it'd be nice to have some fresh stuff to talk about, and also some stuff that might be more positive than negative.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We don't want to, beat a dead horse. I feel like when we watched the Duke game, for example, we saw a lot of the same issues. I mean, we did bring the energy. It was great. We still have trouble communicating on the pick and roll, switching on screens. Duke did a phenomenal job of whenever a guy would cut and they would be penetrating the lane, they'd have a cutter coming in. And if you contested the cutter, they had a guy that would drop behind him, behind the 3-point line. They'd throw it over the cutter's head, the defender's head. The guy would be wide open for a 3 9 times out of 10. It was beautiful play design. We didn't really adjust to that. And then towards the end of the game, when they started missing shots, they decided, hey, we're going to take it inside, and there was just no stopping them. Now, it was kind of mutual. We didn't really stop. We obviously didn't stop them, but they didn't really stop us very well either. I think our biggest strategy is to set a pick towards the top of the key and then just blow by people, get to the lane, and try to draw a foul. And it actually did work last night, but you still have to stop them. So that's all I have to say about the Duke game. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts beyond that. Other than Brandon Huntley-Hatfield had another good game. Sky Clark played well on the offensive end. He made some tough shots. And Tyler Johnson is a stud at point guard, at least on the offensive end. Still foul prone, still got to work on his defense, just like most of them. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add. I think, like you said, Brandon played really well. You know, just the observation of somebody that hasn't watched Duke a lot this year. Man, Filipowski is like the big I would love to have on my team. He can shoot it. He can really pass the ball. I mean, like you were kind of describing, it'd be a pick. They'd run something either where he rolled, popped. If he popped, he'd get himself about to the free throw line, and if anybody collapsed, he found the open shooter. And it kind of reminded me of like a taller David Paget from back in the day. So I was impressed with him, but I was also impressed with, he had a good game passing, but he didn't do a ton down on the post, and I think some of that was due to Brandon playing decent post D. But other than that, I mean, Duke looks like a solid team. I'm not sure they're a Final Four team. And again, losing at home by 15 to any team is just not something I want to see. So,
for sure.
I mean, I got home and I think I watched like the last 16 minutes of it. So I know we were down 18. That's all I heard. from Paul and Bob on my way home was, oh, they came back. They were down 18, and now it's a 6-point game. I'm like, I mean, cool. Fine. They didn't give up, but, like, that's not the point that we're at at this point. Like, if this was last year, we were down 18, came back, and it was a 6-point game, I'd feel better about it. They didn't quit. Cool.
Well, it depends on when you define year one.
That's right.
That being said, Desmond, welcome in, man. We appreciate you always listening. Ty Spalding's in the house. Ty, I would have never guessed until talking to him earlier today that he's a Croninite. He is boning for Cronin. I would never have guessed that. Let's see. Ray Lott in the house.
Hey, Ray got engaged this weekend.
Congratulations, Ray, on your engagement. By the way, guys, my voice is still bad. It's better than it was last week, but we'll see how long it'll last. Hopefully for a while. Pause. Nick Sorrell. Nick, welcome in, man. You finally made it on time. Man, you must really wanted to hear about some Mick Cronin like Ty in here. Couch House, Larry. All right. Well, guys, we do, we all know what the writing is on the wall here. And I've tried not to, we've talked about a little bit, just, briefly touched on, coaching candidates, but I can't do this anymore. Just tiptoeing around. I can't do it. I just can't. Like the content, it's just not fun talking about Louisville basketball right now. And if a coaching search does anything, it gives you hope. You may not get the candidate that you want hired, but the process itself is just fun. Like I was talking to a couple of IU buddies that came over to my house the other night to eat dinner, and they were saying the most fun they've had as an IU fan over the last 20-something years are coaching searches because they've struggled. They've had their struggles, but it's always fun to talk about who the next coach is going to be. And I think we all know that it looks very likely that, Coach Payne's not going to be back with us next year as the head coach. So that being said, we did make a slideshow of 6 candidates. Now, I've already gotten some people on Twitter or on X, whatever you want to call it, that have been asking, they're like, why these 6? Why did you limit it to these 6? Well, 2 reasons. Reason number 1, I don't think any information at all is coming out of our university and our athletic department. They put the clamps down on it. They just want to get through the season. They want to get through the season with Coach Payne, support the players, support the coaches. And I have no doubt they're probably in contact behind the scenes, but they don't want any of that stuff getting out. So I have to look outside of those kind of places. So I look at a national guy if they have any information. And I am in Trilly Donovan's Discord, and Trilly's a very good source. He's connected to the agent world. He's connected to coaches. I am in his Discord, which, by the way, is the burner. I recommend it for anybody that, can spend $6 a month, would like that kind of information. He responds to every question anyone asks him on there. And I actually sent him a list. I sent him 4 names. I sent him Dusty May, Jerome Tang, Eric Musselman, and Mick Cronin. I said, is there anybody I need to take off this list? Is there anybody I need to add? And that's when he told me, he said, Chris Beard and Will Wade, add them and talk about them briefly. Now, he didn't make it sound like it was like a super serious thing, just that they are potential candidates. So I don't want to misquote him, and I also don't want to give away any more information, because it's his site. But I did ask a question specifically, and I told him it would be for this pod. So that being said, that is why you got the 6 candidates you have. Doesn't mean a guy can't come up and then we'll add him to the slides like next week, for example, or 2 weeks from now. I mean, we have a half season left almost. Names are going to come and names are going to go. Some people will withdraw their name from interest altogether and say they're happy at their school. Other people, you'll hear that they are interested, and you may have new names surface. I know somebody's going to ask me about Shaka Smart. It's my understanding Shaka Smart is very happy at Marquette, so I did not include him. Love Shaka Smart. Wish we could get Shaka Smart, and I hope I'm wrong about that. But it is my understanding he's happy at Marquette. I didn't include him. I know there's a big push for Scott Drew. I do not see that happening. it's almost like up there in the Jay Wright tier of, dreaming. So it's just one of those things where I don't think we're going to get Scott Drew. But if we can pull that off, I am all for Scott Drew. I can join the Drew crew. I've got hashtag rhymes all day, by the way. So without further ado, I do want to kind of get into these slides. I'm going to pull them up right here. And let's see. Oh, my banners are messed up. I'll tell you what, I'm going to pull these banners off and see if that does anything. Okay. That's better.
Take the chat off for a minute.
Yeah, I didn't mean to hit that chat. All right. So that being said, we're going to start with Mick Cronin. We are going to start with Mick Cronin, everybody's favorite, right? The most controversial figure. Seems like people either love him or they don't. So let's just go over his coaching tree. His coaching tree is impressive, guys. Bob Huggins for, I believe, 5 years. And Rick Pitino. We know he was under Pitino for 3 years as an assistant here at Louisville. Or maybe it was 2. I don't remember. But he was here, obviously. His overall head coaching record, 472 and 217 for a .685, or 68.5% of his games that he's won. He is 107 and 46 at UCLA, currently 8 and 10 this season. Tournament success, which is a big factor for a lot of people. Made the tournament in 14 out of 21 seasons, which doesn't sound that great until you realize he's made it the last 12 years. He has made 1 Final Four and 2 Sweet 16s in the last 3 seasons at UCLA. That's impressive. Any way you slice it. Some additional information I have. He has 7 freshmen and only 1 returning starter from last year's team. He does employ multiple defenses. He's known as a defensive coach, tight man-to-man defense. He will apply full court pressure in specific situations, but it's not like old school Rick Pitino where he full court pressed all the time. I'm going to let you guys kind of give your opinions. I'm just reading what I wrote. His pros, a lot of experience, and he's still only 52 years old. He's made it to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament or better 3 years in a row. Defensive minded philosophy, and he's very familiar with the program. He is obviously uber competitive. I don't think you would have to worry about Mick Cronin being a guy who is okay losing.
Asking if this is actually year 1 or year 2?
No, I don't think you're going to have to worry about that, which I'm going to get into when I give my opinion on all of it, why that's a blessing and a curse. But anyway, weaknesses. His teams often struggle on offense. Now, I exclude the years at UCLA when Michael Lewis was there, who is now the head coach at Ball State. His offense got a lot better, but Michael Lewis is known as a good offensive coach. And one thing about the offenses under Mick, his best players were guys that were Steve offered holdovers. So that is something to consider because they're not there anymore. And you see what he's replaced them with. That's kind of a concern, but I'll get into that a little bit more later. He is sometimes overly critical of players to the media. And I don't just mean like it in a soft way. I mean, he's pretty daggone hard on people in the media. And in today's NIL transfer portal era, it just doesn't jive very well, in my opinion, but I'll get into that more later. And finally, the big elephant in the room is he currently has a $20 million buyout as of today. It does drop to $16 million on April 1st, but that is a lot of money. And are you going to wait till April 1st in the middle of the transfer portal when you can get them earlier than that? And I've heard about the loopholes. And I'd have to see it to believe it, because the whole thing about switching conferences means that he no longer is bound by that contract. There are a ton of coaches that, in my opinion, would have taken advantage of that, and a ton of programs that would have taken advantage of that with all the movement we've seen in conference realignment. I've never once heard of a contract, a buyout being waived or negated due to switching conferences, but maybe I'm missing something. That being said, guys, I want to get your all's thoughts on Mick Cronin. I'll start with you, Pat.
Yeah, I mean, Mick is kind of he's that guy where, if you remember the last time we had a coaching search, Mick's name came up, and not everybody, but a lot of people were like, we don't want Mick Cronin. And this was before he had, another couple good years at UCLA. And then, earlier this year when, KP's coming off a bad season, people are kind of projecting that we might have another bad year this year. And Mick Cronin's name was hot. A lot of people said, "Man, we should have hired him last time. We if we can get him, we got to go get him." And now he's 8-10, and you kind of got people going back to, I don't know about Mick Cronin. My thoughts are, listen, you can't look at one season to determine who's going to be your head coach. Now, it's going to be on the top of your mind and how he handles this season. And if there's some improvement, like you said, there's 7 freshmen, only 1 returning starter. They look to have started to improve a little bit. They, lost the game to Arizona. I think they should have won. And honestly, if the referees were doing their job, they would have won. And they've started to play better. So I think, if you're looking at this year, you've got to concentrate on, is the team getting better? Those are the good coaches make their teams better. Even in down years, by the end of the year, their teams are better. So I think we got to look at that the rest of the way. And also how he handles this, which is kind of my only big time negative against Mick, and you kind of hit on it, is I don't think he's handled this season well so far. There's been a lot of throwing players under the bus, getting him back and forth with the media. That's not going to play well here after our past 4 or 5 years. But in terms of, his success, I think he's proven, 12 straight tournaments, going deep in the tournaments lately. The pressure at a school like UCLA probably isn't the pressure you'd see here anymore, but it's still a big P5 job. So, he's done well there. From a visual standpoint of watching his teams play, it's not the most exciting basketball. It's similar. I don't want to say it's similar to Pitino. Pitino's basketball was more exciting, but his offenses are similar to Pitino's, where there's, a lot of motion, the pace,
like the weave.
Yeah, the weave. The pace isn't extremely fast, other than when you get a fast break. Mick's probably not at the top of my list anymore, but I'm not one of these people that would be so pissed if we hired Mick Cronin.
Connor?
So I was actually talking to some people yesterday. I figured out part of his issue this year, other than the freshman issue, which if you look at other schools, they have freshmen and they're doing just fine. I think we know exactly who I'm talking about. All of his freshmen, I think, are international.
That's true.
And that's because he doesn't have any NIL money, so he can't get the guys out of the portal that he wants because he has no NIL money. He takes all of the internationals because they don't have to pay them NIL money, because it's illegal for them to make money on their F1 visa in the States. So that's part of the issue. And they're not only having to get accustomed to life in the U.S., get accustomed to college life, get accustomed to college basketball in the U.S., they're also having to learn a whole new, when I say this, it's not going to make sense, but they're having to learn a whole new basketball game compared to what they played overseas. So the learning curve for them is bigger than what it would be for normal freshmen. So I think that is the big reason they're 8-10. And then if we don't have the money to buy out Kenny at $8 million, do we have the money to buy out Kenny and Mick at 28 before April 1st, or even at 24 after April 1st? I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay. Thank you all. I'm going to get into to kind of how I feel about it with starting. I'm going to start with the pros and what the other side like. Okay, I got some guys on here watching right now, and girls maybe, that are big Cronin fans. They are boning for Cronin right now, and I love and appreciate all of you. I do. Bring Brom home, guy. I know you're watching. I think I know who you are, man. And if you're who I think you are, I really respect you. I respect the work you've done. I am not going to tell anybody who I think it is. And maybe by a very small chance, I'm wrong. But I know if it's who I think it is, he's a very passionate fan. He cares a lot about the University of Louisville. And it actually makes a whole lot of sense that a guy like that would have the time and the energy to do what he does. So I respect it. I respect the boning for Cronin. I respect the Mick is the fit. And I understand why, he's a former Patino guy. He's familiar with the program. He does have a history of success. He does have 12 straight tournaments. And he finally has overcome, somewhat at least, that bugaboo he had at Cincinnati where he couldn't get out of the first weekend. All of those things are very true. He does coach really good defense. That's also true. But here's what I grade who I hope our next coach is on. There's 4 main criteria: a history of winning, including tournament success, addicted to the game of basketball. You cannot be the head coach at Louisville without being addicted to the game to the point it's almost unhealthy, like Rick Pitino was. Now, we know Chris Mack, kind of like he lived the dad life, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I think Louisville basketball was too big of a stage for him. Coach Payne, we don't have to talk about it. We kind of know it's not going to work, man. So that being said, Mick Cronin has a history of winning. He has some tournament success. He is addicted to the game of basketball, I have no doubt. But there's 2 more criteria. You have to embrace the limelight, and you have to be a cultural fit to the program. And I see somebody say that Mac owns Mick. Well, Cal owned Pitino, but I would never take John Calipari over Rick Pitino. Tony Bennett owned Pitino. Jim Boeheim was owned by Pitino. There's guys that own Pitino, but I would never take them over Rick. I don't ever like to do a head-to-head. Some people just own various teams. Anyway, those last 2, embracing the limelight and cultural fit for the program, I really worry about that with Mick Cronin. He does not embrace the limelight. He doesn't. I'm basing all of my skepticism off of like hours of looking at old Mick interviews, looking at how Cincinnati fans felt about him, how UCLA fans feel about him. Mick Cronin does not like being questioned by anybody. He blames the officials every time he loses, every single time. Every interview I could find where he lost a game, it was his players are stupid. They don't have the aptitude to win. You can't call your mommy. She can't help you. That was a quote he said about his players. When they turn the ball over, he said, well, you can't call your mommy. She can't help you. He said, my players don't have the aptitude, and you're not able to learn if you don't have it. And you're incapable of it. And I'm like, that's your players. He complained to the media about his NIL, which Connor's right. His NIL is a problem at UCLA. But you don't throw your current players under the bus publicly. They still have to play the game for you, man. Cincinnati fans, everything I've seen on their message boards about Mick Cronin, on Reddit about Mick Cronin, on YouTube videos where they would comment was some people couldn't stand the guy. Other people appreciated what he did, but they felt like it was time for him to move on. And what Mick Cronin did at Cincinnati, by the way, he did an incredible job. They were in a hellacious place when he took over. And that's also why it took him 3 or 4 years to make his first tournament, because they were in a mess of a situation. He lifted them out of the grave. But the problem with Mick Cronin, when I watch Mick Cronin's interviews, when I see the way he talks about his players, he's a 1990s coach. His ideology is waning, and I'm afraid he's not going to adjust to the times. And it's gotten him by so far. But you see what happens when he faces some adversity. It gets worse. And he needs to get better at that. Like, that's something that goes back. I actually was like, why did I not like Mick Cronin the first time this came up? And I couldn't remember just how much I disliked his antics at Cincinnati until this year when he started doing them again, and even worse. Like, players, how are you going to recruit guys when your philosophy is to just run them into the ground? Which I get the old school boomer mentality of a Bobby Knight is like, hey, let's you tear them down to build them up. That's
This
not
ain't the
going to work.
military.
It's not the military anymore. The world's changed. I'm former military. I can be too hard at times. And I'm saying it's not going to work. Recruits, like your most valuable recruits, they're not going to put up with that shit. They're not. And then
They'll
with
go
the
to
transfer portal, now they can get out. When the going gets tough, and I get it, when the going gets tough, you shouldn't quit. You should tough it out. You should take constructive criticism. I don't disagree with any of that. The players will overall. This generation will. So you can say they're soft. That's fine. But at the end of the day, you still need them, and you need the best ones.
Yeah. I think
my problem with Mick. And I mean, like I said, this is a bunch of videos, a bunch of feedback from fans at his current and former schools. It's not very good, guys. And when he comes to Louisville, the spotlight doesn't get bigger. UCLA is a blue blood program, but they're a professional town. They're Hollywood area. UCLA basketball is on the back burner.
They're watching LeBron, man.
He will have a nervous breakdown as a Louisville basketball head coach because the microscope, the fishbowl mentality is much more than what it was at either of his previous 3 programs, going all the way back to Murray State, obviously, then Cincinnati, then UCLA. So my final conclusion, Mick Cronin is a great coach whose philosophy is becoming more outdated with each passing day.
Yeah, I think, I won't talk too much more, but
I'm sorry for all you Cronin fans. No hard feelings. I totally get it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pat, go ahead.
Mick is one of those guys when it's going good, it's going good. But when there's some adversity is when stuff can spiral. And we, as you said, you want a coach who hates to lose. I mean, you saw Bettino the other night. He said he wanted to go throw himself in the cold or off the bridge or whatever he said.
Yep.
You want a coach that hates to lose, but with that, you want somebody who's going to take accountability when they do lose. And I think you're right. You don't see a ton of accountability with Mick, and we're going through that this year in a different kind of way. And I can't imagine the fan base when there's a little adversity with Mick would be,
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up because that was a point I wanted to make. So here's the spectrum of being competitive. Kenny Payne is on this side over here, which is his goal is to love up on the kids and to help them learn and grow. And it's not about wins and losses. It's about, getting better every day. We don't want to measure it with concrete goals. That's not good. You can smile and laugh after a loss. And that's not the answer. We know that. But there is an equally opposite extreme there's an opposite extreme that is equally harmful, which is where you hate losing so much that you can't control your temper and you react kind of like a child and you stomp and you pout and you throw people under the bus. I'm going to be honest, man. Mick Cronin kind of reminds me of like he's pouting in the press conferences. He will cut off reporters and answer questions they weren't going to ask. And he does it all the time. He just comes across as a jerk when he loses. And that's not going to fly in Louisville. It's not going to fly. So if he wants to be the next coach, he's going to have to change. He is. And I know that's going to upset some people. I threw out a lot of warning signs with Kenny Payne before he was hired. Unfortunately, we stumbled on every single one of them. You have to adjust and adapt to your culture and your program. He's going to be under a microscope here. He is. You don't want to be too far the other way. You want to be closer. I will say this. You want to be closer to Mick Cronin on the spectrum of competitiveness than you do Kenny Payne.
Well, duh.
Well, no, because to me, they're equal extremes, or they have equal results when they're too extreme. But you want to toe the line closer to Mick, I think, which is where you get a Rick Pitino type. You know, Rick can kind of pout and cut people off, and we've seen it, but not to the extent of what we're seeing out of Mick, not only this year, but throughout his past. It will create a toxic environment. Recruiting will be a challenge here. Doesn't matter how much NIL you have if players don't like you, or they'll come for 1 year and then they'll leave and go somewhere else. You have to build kids up, man. Doesn't mean you don't tear them down behind the scenes some. Doesn't mean you don't work them hard. Doesn't mean you don't tell them what they need to work on. You don't coddle them, but you can't run them into the ground like you could in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's an old guard mentality.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any final thoughts before I go to the next one? I don't want to get too. We're 30 minutes in, but I knew Cronin would be the longest one.
The only thing I'll say that I do like about Cronin that hasn't been mentioned is you look at his players and he gives the developmental vibe of a Rick Pitino. His players constantly get better from year to year. I mean, you look at Jack Hez that plays for Miami now. I mean, from his freshman to his senior year, constantly getting better. Johnny Juzang came over from Kentucky and got better. Tiger Campbell constantly got better. So I do think if he gets his kind of players that can, stand being called out in the media, he does make them better. And it seems to be a linear development, which I kind of like in a coach.
Bill Henderson, he does he's not as successful as a coach as Bobby Knight, and he's not quite as extreme. There's no chair throwing. There's no slamming his mic down and cursing to walk out in the middle of an interview. But I'll tell you what, he's a lot closer to Bobby Knight than anybody else I've seen in a long time, and it just doesn't work anymore, in my opinion. Now, I know some people disagree. I still love y'all. So let's move on to the next one. The must bus, Eric Musselman. Now this, first off, he's got such a wild, erratic resume that it actually cut off the weaknesses at the bottom. So apologies. I tried to shrink it, but then you couldn't read it. You couldn't see it. And I couldn't see it right now to read it. So Eric Musselman's coaching tree, Bill Musselman, his father, was the primary coach that he was an assistant under. And he's a lot like Bill Musselman. I've done a lot of Eric Musselman research for 6 years now, or 7 years, or whenever Chris Mack took the job. I was okay with Chris Mack, but I really wanted Eric Musselman. I'll admit that right up front. Then he got to Arkansas, and I kept watching him, kept following him. So I've read all these stories about his personal life, his upbringing, and Bill Musselman was his primary coach. Mike Fratello, the Grizzlies head coach in the NBA, was another famous head coach that he tutored under. Let's just get into his overall record because it is all over the place, just like Muss. 215-84 in the NCAA. That's 8.5 years of college basketball now. That is a 71.9% winning percentage. Very high winning percentage. 108 and 138 in the NBA, 270 and 222 in the CBA, which used to be like the NBDL, 53 and 3 in the USBL, so the United States Basketball League, 77 and 30 when he was a D-League head coach. And then this year at Arkansas, he is currently 10 and 8. Before this year, he had 8 straight 20-plus win seasons. That includes at Nevada, who was not good. He rose them from the grave. Arkansas had been dead for 20 years? He immediately comes in there, makes an impact. Some additional info, he was the NBA head coach for the Golden State Warriors from 2002-2004 and the Sacramento Kings from 2006-2007. So his strengths, his pros, in my opinion, He has NBA experience. He's able to recruit guys and get them to the NBA. He's got quite a few successful players right now in the league. Great recruiter. I talked about his 20-plus wins and 8+ seasons. He made a Sweet 16 at Nevada. That's very impressive. And in 4 years at Arkansas, not counting this year, he has 2 Elite Eights and a Sweet 16 and a COVID year where the tournament never happened. So out of the 3 eligible years, the worst he did was make a Sweet 16. He is charismatic and energetic. He handles high-pressure situations well. He does not shy away from the limelight. He has an entertaining style of play, and he is a basketball-obsessed junkie. If you read anything about Eric Musselman, it makes me like wonder. His dad was the same way. Like I said, his father died young. And I believe a big reason why his father died young was because he was so fixated and obsessed with the game. He was a tireless worker. I think Muss has a lot of that in him. Let's just hope, his health is better. And, let's get to some of the weaknesses. They are not listed because I couldn't fit him in, like I said, due to his lengthy resume. His age is 60, which is a weakness, but I will say if there's a 60-year-old that's in damn good shape, kind of like Rick Pitino was, it's Eric Musselman. He's in great shape. So he is 60 years old. He is struggling this year. They're 10-8. They haven't looked well at all. They look a bit disjointed. He does rely heavily on a portal, which is a blessing if you have a complimentary roster. But I think this year he recruited a lot of guards and not enough big men. He's kind of like the opposite of problem that we had last year, which is where we recruited a bunch of big men and wings and not enough guards. And you could argue we even still a little bit this year have that problem. He's like the inverse of that this year. I will say that he adjusts his style of play to his roster, which I find very impressive. He's had fast-paced, up-tempo teams who trap and pressure on defense, and then he's had strictly man-to-man defenses and slower-paced teams who run a bit more of a weave type of offense and a pick and roll like what we see this year so far. And he does a really good job. He has a lot of different things that he brings to the table, wrinkles when it comes to his teams. He will adjust to his roster. He's not rigid, which again, this year is kind of like he can't find a point guard. L. Ellis is obviously on their team. He's not played too hot. Keon Minifield has all the potential in the world, but he started mid-semester and he's been hit or miss. He's either been hot or completely cold. And then they don't have a big man. Brazil has not played as well as they thought. He's a bit too soft. He needs to be down low. He camps out and shoots a lot of threes. And then the thing about Musselman, the biggest con I have is he is always moving jobs. Arkansas is actually the longest job he's ever had. This is his 5th year. Now, I will counter that con with this. He will be 60 years old, and I think he's going to be done with the NBA. He's done that twice. He's been a head coach, and he's been an assistant coach. He's been a head coach at 2 different teams. He's been at all levels of professional basketball, from the NBA and everything in between. I think he will stick it out in college. So the question becomes at 60 years old, if you take the job at Louisville, how many better jobs are going to open? As long as you get it rolling here, this is a top, if you want to be skeptical, this is a top 8 job. But I think when we're rolling, we are a top 5 job easy.
Yeah.
And so good luck. I mean, you got North Carolina and Duke, which they're pretty rooted right now. And then who else? You got Kansas. I mean, Kansas will be making a change at some point. You just don't have a whole lot of opportunities to jump. And then by the time they open, he'll probably be 65, 66 years old. That's my hope. But that is a con, is that he does tend to move around a lot. There are rumors that he has his staff sometimes has a hard time getting along with him because of his up and down, eccentric, kind of overly obsessive personality. So that is something that kind of, I don't know how true that is, but I've heard that a lot. What do you guys think about Eric Musselman? Connor, I'll start with you this time.
I'm watching him right now, and he's losing to another guy on this list that I really like.
Yeah.
They're down 6 right now. But I have a hard time believing that he's going to leave Arkansas with the people that he has backing him right now, NIL-wise, especially because we don't know what our basketball NIL looks like because we haven't been good since NIL was a thing.
Well, and Coach Payne doesn't really use a circle, so he uses his own separate thing.
Exactly. That's my point. So we don't know how good our basketball NIL really is.
Well,
so
that's where Josh Hurd comes in now. He's got to sell it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, and I think
Mark and Dan, those guys, they have to sell it.
And I think football has proven if you get somebody in here that shows passion and has a good strategy and can win, the NIL money will take care of itself.
But him being able to get the Martin twins to Nevada and get to the Sweet 16 in Nevada says something. Like
Atlanta 5-star at Nevada too. I can't remember his first name. It was Brown, something Brown.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I just know that the Martin twins were on that team.
Yeah.
Like this year's obviously not great. Like you said, he has too. I never thought I'd say this. He has too many guards.
Yep.
But I have a hard time saying no.
Yeah.
If Eric Musselman said I'll be there tomorrow, I said okay.
Right.
But do we know what his buyout is? Isn't it like
$1 million?
It's only $1 million.
$1 million buyout. I forgot to put that in the pros. I meant to. Sorry, guys. I'm slacking.
Shit. If it's only $1 million, I say that like I have $1 million. But if it's only $1 million, like that's the biggest pro to me compared to Mick Cronin is his buyout is 16 times less what Mick Cronin's will be on April 1st.
So another thing about the buyout and all that is I've actually heard that he's very interested in the job as far as his agents reaching out, his camp. But that could all be, that could be for leverage to get more money in Arkansas. We're all aware of that. You don't know. But I'm putting them on the list for that reason. If you would have told me 2 months ago, I wouldn't have believed it until two people I definitely think would definitely know, both who are not connected at all, both told me that this is a possibility and that he is interested. So it could all be bluffing. It could be serious. So, Pat, anyway, what do you think about Eric Musselman?
I think
a quick bathroom break.
Probably the most attractive thing to me about Eric Musselman is his floor is probably the best of the available candidates. I mean, if Eric Musselman comes in here, one, he's going to be able to turn over the roster because he attacks the portal. Two, based off of his past in college basketball, he's going to have us back or near the tournament probably in year one, which is huge. We need something to get us excited for. So I'm not sure he has the highest floor. I mean, the highest ceiling, but I think he might have the highest floor of the guys that we can get. I think in terms of building excitement too for the fan base, I've said it in the Discord before. I think if you win, the fan base will come back. But in terms of building that excitement at the beginning, I think he's got the personality to do it. He'll get people in the yum before proving it, which, again, it's important for us to get off on the right start. This season concerns me a little bit. But again, as I said with Mick, you can't look at one season. The transfer portal is going to be a key for us, and it's a plus. But the one thing that worries me in the portal age with Musselman is I think he needs to figure out how to balance the portal and continuity on his team a little bit. I think unlike football, where you've got 11 people playing on both sides of the ball and there's a lot of, substituting and stuff, like in basketball, you have to have a lot more chemistry on the court, the way the game's played and the fact that there's a lot less players. And I think it's hard to build chemistry of you're constantly turning over your whole roster.
Right.
So but I think he's smart enough to find that perfect medium. His guard play is usually fantastic, which excites me. College basketball is about guard play. And he goes out and gets great guards, both, in the high school ranks and through the portal. I hope the one thing he's never really had, maybe 1 year, is a big time rim protector. And I think that's another key to going deep in a tournament. So I kind of hope, he can figure out a way to mesh that in with his guards, find a big time rim protector. But yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about his age at all. The experience in college basketball, coaching in college is a lot
better
different
shape than us.
Coaching in college is a lot different than coaching in the NBA and the pros. And so I think he's still got growth as a coach. It's not like he's peaked yet, which is weird to say about a near 60-year-old.
Yeah, this is his 9th year as a college head coach. So
Right.
like the idea of when you hit 60, you just don't have anything else to learn doesn't really apply in Muss's unique situation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I am going to kind of push it forward a little bit. We're heading up to 46 minutes. All right, this next one's one that's gained a lot of steam in the last couple of weeks, but not with me and not with Ty Elliott. Tang Gang. Jerome Tang, head coach at Kansas State. He has a very tough road. 6 out of his next 7 games are against ranked opponents, and I believe 4 or 5 of those are on the road. So we're gonna see what Jerome Tang's made of. Very, very much right in the here and now. And I think right now he's playing Iowa State on the road. So TJ Otzelberger, which I know that's a name some people have thrown in there. I think his buyout's too much, and I haven't heard a thing about him coming here. So that being said, Jerome Tang, coaching tree obviously is Scott Drew, an assistant at Baylor for 19 years, including associate head coach the last season there. Overall record as a head coach, obviously he's been a head coach in college basketball for a year and a half. So it's 40-14. He's currently 14.
Still better than Kenny.
Currently 14-4. He made an Elite 8 in his first season, guys. An Elite 8 in his first season. Inherited a 14-17 roster. Flipped the roster for the most part. Went and did what he did last year. I mean, that's pretty incredible. He was a high school head coach, additional information, a high school head coach at Heritage Christian Academy for 10 years. This year, it's kind of impressive that he's 14-4 because he lost a player that got dismissed from the team, Naquan Tomlin.
It was probably his best player.
It was arguably his best player, and it was definitely his best returning player. And he lost him due to a weird thing where, there was a domestic dispute and it was an accident what happened as far as him getting in a fight at a bar, but he made contact with somebody he shouldn't have. Nobody was really hurt in the process. It looked like he was going to be back on the team. It was one of those things where you suspend him for a little bit, and he was suspended. But right when he was about to come back and play, the president came in and dismissed him from the team, overrode the athletic director and the head coach. So I would not be surprised if Jerome Tang leaves. That's damn near unforgivable. I don't know how you can just, unless he makes a huge run without him, I don't see how you can look at that, because when I watch Kansas State, they're missing a guy that fills that void. Like, they don't have somebody filling the void that Tomlin left. That, if they did, they would be incredible right now. And he's had Case Glover, who's a guard, who was an impact guard. He's out for the season. He had a knee injury. He came back for a game, re-aggravated it. He's out for the season. And he just got a guy back. His name escapes me right now. Just got him back, and he's been out most of the year too. Another guard who's not as impactful, but a depth piece definitely. So he's been very undermanned to do what he's doing. His pros are that he has an elite defense. I mean, it is great. I watch Jerome Tang as much as I can. His defense is suffocating. I see Ty say it reminds you of old school Rick Pitino. I would say the intensity of it does. I do think they run different defenses altogether, but they have the same effectiveness. I'll say that. Jerome Tang's more of a man-to-man defense, but he plays so tight man-to-man and is so physical without fouling. His teams do. It's incredible. His ability to turn over a roster was evident based on turning over a Kansas State team and going, I believe it was 26-11 after inheriting a 14-17 roster, being one bucket away from a Final Four. I mean, Marquise Noel balled out last year. And so, obviously, and he can recruit well. That's another thing. Yeah. Now, obviously, we get to the weaknesses, and having only 2 seasons under your belt is a weakness. And I mean a weakness as far as we don't have a whole lot of data to go off of. Did you hit lightning in a bottle? Can you continuously recruit the way you have been and build a roster yourself? Because there are some unique coaches that are better at flipping a roster and having immediate success than they are sustaining it. And you kind of worry about that a little bit with Eric Musselman some, because he kind of leaves before you really know. In football, Bobby Petrino was that way. He never sat still. As soon as he started to get really good, he'd leave you. So you don't know yet with Jerome Tang. There's not a whole lot of data to go off of. His teams are turnover prone, and they get stagnant on offense. His offense, I do think some of that this year is related to the injuries. And that's why I said the void that Tomlin left in particular hasn't been filled. And Case Glover would be a very impactful guard on this team, and he's just not there. I do get tired of seeing Tyler Perry jack up shot after shot after shot and shoot them out of games. He kind of has that Caleb Love mentality. At times I want to call him Darius Perry instead of Tyler Perry. He's a better player. He's got more, and no offense to Darius Perry, but Tyler Perry's a very talented player, but he's a chucker. And sometimes the offense gets real stagnant. Shot clock gets down to 5, 4, 3. He's at the top of the key, just throws up junk. And yeah, he'll make 1 or 2 of them, and then he'll miss 10 of them. So that is a weakness to me, is his offense. But his defense is so good that I'm damn near willing to overlook it. What do you guys think about Jerome Tang? Pat?
Yeah, man, I'm Jerome Tang has continued to grow on me.
K-State down 10. Oh.
They're down 11 now.
Until I heard that, cross him off the list.
Cross him off.
He's no, Ohio State. He's done.
He's, again, there's not a ton of data, but the data there is really good. That team was fun to watch last year. The few times I've watched them this year, they're fun to watch. I'm a defense guy, and I like the way they play defense. Not just that they're good at it, but their defensive concepts. I think, he's the guy on this list that I would say is the players coach.
Yes.
He goes all out for his players, but it's in a different way than Kenny, is a players coach. He demands a lot of his players. I'm not saying Kenny doesn't, but you can tell he's going to go to bat for you. He went to bat hard for Naquan Tomlin, which he should have. But as a kid, you see that and you want to play for a guy like that. The roster turnover is good for, our position. And he's proven that, he can take a team that's down and immediately turn them around, which most of these guys on this list have proven. There's not, other than the limited data, there's not a ton I dislike about Jerome Tang. I do wonder, and maybe one of you guys know, why, he spent 19 years as an assistant at Baylor, and was he rejecting, mid-major jobs and waiting for a Power 5 job? I don't know. That it's a little bit weird, and that could throw up a little bit of a red flag. But other than that, man, he's near, if not at the top of my list. And I think the rest of this season, to get more data and to see how he performs, can he take this team back to the tournament without, 2 of his probably top 4 players? That's going to tell us a lot.
Well, real quick before Connor goes, I actually think him staying at Baylor so long, if he were to leave Kansas State and come to Louisville, it makes me think he'd stick around as long as he's had success and the fans backed him, which they absolutely would, so long as he has success. He's the kind of guy that people gravitate to. I think he'd stick around. And I mean, Khan, which I forgot to say, was 57 years old. So he is a little bit older, but I mean, he can still give you 13 good years. Anyway, Connor, what do you think of Jerome Tang?
I mean, I'm watching him right now. Like, his defense is great. Like, the offense has a lot to be desired, but, without two of your best players, like, it's hard. But I also go back to what Pat just said. Like, there was probably a reason he was an assistant for 19 years. And this is not a bad thing on him, but like, Kenny was also an assistant for how many years? And then he went into year one as a head coach. Like, they're two different people. And Kenny had never made a practice plan in his life. Look what happened. He went 4-28. Tang probably never did that either. And look, he went whatever he did last
26
year.
26-11,
yeah. Yeah, like, the not having experience, quote unquote, of being a head coach, like, yeah, that's kind of a red flag, but his record's 40-14. Like, it's the complete opposite of Kenny's record, and they have coached the same amount of games. And arguably, the Big 12 is a harder conference to coach in than the ACC at this point.
Definitely.
Okay, so my take on Jerome Tang is I would love Jerome Tang at Louisville. Absolutely love it. I think he's okay. Here's my history of winning. Now, that's the most iffy one because it's very little history. But in the little history he has, he does win. Addicted to basketball? I don't know. I tried to look up. He talks a lot about his faith, and he obviously loves basketball. I don't know if he's like a Muss or a Cronin type of basketball addict. I don't know that answer. Embracing the limelight? Absolutely. Jerome Tang is not afraid of anybody, and he has no problem, embracing the limelight. And he seems to actually do a really good job of that. Cultural fit to the program, I absolutely think he would be. I think he would be a very good transition, and he would be able to empathize with a fan base who's been through hell and back for 6 or 7 years now, and it just keeps getting worse. I think he would be able to empathize where I feel like this staff currently didn't do a good job of that. And they kind of, just walled everybody off when we needed a coach to kind of, reach out and lend an olive branch or two. We earned that, I felt like, but I guess not with this staff. I think Jerome Tang would be really good at that. So that being said, I am going to go to the next one. I see somebody saying move along, but I mean, you got to break them down. It's called a deep dive. It's not called a say one sentence about them. All right.
I don't know.
Dusty May is a name that I have heard is interested, as his agents have reached out about the Louisville job and expressed interest in the job. And I think it is sincere interest. So his coaching tree is Bob Knight as a student manager at IU, and Mike White, who was the Florida coach. And
He's
I believe
at Georgia.
He's at Georgia now. So Dusty May's overall record is 109-62 for a 63.7% winning percentage. He's currently 15-4 this season at FAU. His tournament success, he made his first tournament last year, but he made the most of it. He made the Final Four. So that's pretty good. Additional information, he is from close to Bloomington, which is important. He was a student manager under Bob Knight, which is important. And he went 35-4 last season. His pros and his strengths, in my opinion, he is still young. He's 46 years old. So you get Dusty May, and if he's a lifer, which we'll get into why I don't think he is, but if he was a lifer and he was successful, you've got your next 25, 30-year coach potentially. He has a fun style of play on offense, very fun. He spreads the floor. He has 4 ball handlers who can handle the ball anywhere on the court, who can shoot it from anywhere on the court. So it kind of reminds me of those old Villanova teams, those 4-guard teams under Jay Wright. I'm impressed with it. He retained almost his entire roster from last season. So that shows people like to play for him.
Except the kid that graduated. That's the only one that he didn't bring back.
Only one. He had one guy that left the team. So almost the entire roster is back. I would also say I put in my weaknesses that is a point of skepticism, because can you flip a roster? Can you recruit at an elite level at a school like Louisville? How long will it take you? Because at Florida Atlantic, which I will say, Florida Atlantic had absolutely nothing. It's very well known when I read Dusty May's background that when he took the FAU job, he had not toured the facilities yet. He impulsively took the job, and he went home and cried that night and told his wife he was going to, rescind his name after he saw that they had absolutely no facilities and no money. He thought he made a huge mistake. And so that's an interesting story. His wife and then, Mike White and a couple others said, hey, just stick it in there. Dude. I believe in you. You'll make it work.
Nice.
So So he went 17. I think he went 16 and 15, 17 and 15, 17 and 15, and 19 and 15. So his best record before the Final Four season was 19 and 15, and that was in 4 years. So he didn't really do a whole lot, but he also had nothing to work with. So that's why I brought all that up first. So he finally gets guys. He gets a culture established. He did what he did last year. He went 35-4 with a Final Four, and he's 15-4 so far this year. He has played some good teams. I think he does struggle with some weaker teams this year. I don't feel like his team's doing quite as well so far this year as they did last year. So I don't know. So then the next thing, my biggest con with Dusty May, and to me it's a deal breaker, but some people may disagree, is that I think he will be at IU as soon as they come calling, and I don't think it's going to take very long. That is his dream job. He was born and raised near Bloomington, Indiana. He was a student manager for Bobby Knight. His entire immediate family, besides like his wife and his kid, I shouldn't say immediate, his entire extended family is from that area, and most of them still live in that area. It's kind of like how Jeff Brom was at Louisville. You always had a feeling he would end up back here, even after he turned us down the first time. Now, he doesn't have the connections to the program that the Broms had. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that his heart is probably still in IU from everything I've heard. And so if Woodson was 50 years old and crushing it, I wouldn't be too worried. Woodson is 65 years old, and he's not crushing it. So whether he retires or whether he gets fired next year if he doesn't make the tournament, I fully expect them to put the full court press on Dusty May. And if it takes him 3 or 4 years to build this program before it really gets rolling, either A, we'll get one good year out of him, or we may not get any good years out of him. He may still be in that process and he jumps to IU. That's a big risk to me. What do you guys think?
I just don't like – is a pro that we could get Coron's cousin? But
he's a baller.
like that's his best player. Like, no joke, that's his best player. But I just don't – I don't see it. And if he's here for 3 or 4 years and fixes us, cool. And goes to IU, cool. But who says IU doesn't make the tournament this year and Woodson doesn't get fired this year? And then we're both open at the same time. So Dusty is not even going to consider us. Like, I don't know anything that IU's going to do. Like, I have no clue. But
it won't be this year.
It won't be this year?
It will not be this year. And I wish it was, because then his name would be off the table. We wouldn't have to deal with getting him here and then losing him. You know what I mean?
Because if he's here for a year, like, he's not really building a foundation, because all those kids, guess what? They're all going to transfer to Indiana. Like, and being able to transfer multiple times, which is a court case, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to bore you with that. It's going to end up being you're going to be able to transfer as many times as you want. That's going to get struck down in court. So, like, cool. If he can recruit at a high level, that's great. But I think he recruited guys at the level that he needed for FAU, and they got better with him. They're not at a Power 5 level. If you have his guys play a Power 5 schedule day in, day out, they're not 15-4. I saw something on Twitter the other day that they've hit for the cycle this year. They've beaten a quad 1, a quad 2, a quad 3, and a quad 4, but they've also lost to a quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, and quad 4. So, is it a better spot than we're in now? Yeah, but I just don't think having him for a year is the best idea.
What about you, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, of the four main candidates, I think Dusty probably has the highest ceiling, but the lowest floor. And I'm not sure in the situation we're in, we can take someone with the lowest floor. And then you add into that, like if he does do well here, the IU factor. I mean, this shouldn't be a consideration, by Josh Hurd, but man, it would ruin me if I had to hear IU fans talk all the time about how they hired our coach away.
Brother, I live here.
Oh,
My entire, all the peers around me have already said, we'd love for Dusty to go to Louisville because he would be at a big school, and then we would know if he could do it or not before we take him from you.
Yeah.
And it is true. I can't even argue it. Oh, yeah. It would be awful, man.
It would be awful. So, I mean, those are he's again, man, he's got a high ceiling, and if he can transfer what he's doing at Florida Atlantic to a Power 5 job, he's got it, and he's young enough. He's still got room to grow as a coach. He's got a chance to be a top-notch guy. But I want a guy in here who I know the floor is going to be making the tournament, getting us to Sweet 16s, with a higher ceiling, obviously. But I need that floor right now. I need to see tournament basketball. I need to see, us winning in year one or year two. And I'm not sure Dusty brings that. I will say that his offense of the four guys is probably the most exciting. But yeah, man, I don't know if I could deal with the risk of Dusty May on both sides of, is he going to be successful here? And if he's successful here, is he going to stay here?
Yeah, that's hard to deal with. That's it's just a way that Louisville basketball usually doesn't have to worry about. If a coach is successful, you don't really worry about our programs poaching them, but it's another blue blood, and it happens to be where his heart is. So it's hard to say no to that. Maybe he would, but that's not a chance I'd be willing to take. But anyway, we're going to move on. All right. This is the one a lot of people have been waiting on. Either they want to pounce on it or they want to support it. So here we go with the polarizing takes. We're going to read his resume before we even start. Chris Beard, coaching tree. His biggest name in his coaching tree is Bob Knight. At Texas Tech, he learned under his tutelage. His overall record is 251 and 100, 71.5% winning percentage. Currently 15-3 this season at Ole Miss, and last I heard he was winning, so he may be
currently up 12 on Musselman.
Yeah, so probably going to be 16-3 very soon. Tournament success. You think he's got it? He had one national runner-up and an Elite Eight, both at Texas Tech. He went 30-5 at Little Rock, and he won an NCAA tournament game at Little Rock. He was 7-1 at Texas in the second season before he got fired, and most people thought that was going to be a national championship caliber team before he got fired for what happened there.
That team was dirty and still went to the Elite Eight with interim coach.
Him, but it was mainly due to him. So his pros and his strengths, we'll start there. Quick program builder, no doubt about it. Look what he's doing at Ole Miss right now, and look what he's done everywhere he's been. Success at multiple programs, Texas A&M, Ole Miss. Makes deep tournament runs. An elite defensive coach, absolutely elite on the defensive end, and he's not bad on offense either. and he's a great recruiter. There's no doubt about it. How many guys did Rick Pitino and Chris Mack, I think it was mainly Chris Mack, lose to Chris Beard? All kind of them. So
one of them is playing for him right now.
And then I have one con and one weakness. And normally you'd say, there's only one? That's great. Nope, it's not great. It's not great. It's the worst con you could have. Well, besides murder, he has domestic assault allegations. Now, I'm not here to play the did he do it? Did he not do it? The police report was written. It looks bad. But the woman rescinded it, said it was overblown or whatever she said exactly. I don't want to be the moral police here. What I will say is I added Chris Beard because when I asked Trilly Donovan in his Discord about guys I should add besides the 4 that I've led with, he mentioned Chris Beard and the candidate after him, but he said just add them and briefly talk about them. He didn't make it sound like our administration would strongly pursue them, which I assume is the case. Now, people can be mad about that, but we do have a history of stepping in shit multiple times. And so you bring a guy like Chris Beard here, a PR, you are going to take a PR hit. If you're talking just his resume without the domestic assault, he clears. Beard,
the best guy on the list.
He's the best guy on the list, hands down, no questions asked. You throw everything you can at him, but he does have domestic assault allegations. He is at Ole Miss. The argument, I hear both sides. The argument is Ole Miss took a chance. He hasn't done anything wrong there yet. Now, he hasn't been there very long, but why wouldn't we take a chance if they took the biggest hit first? But the argument on the other side, some people are not willing to put up with that at all. Like, it's unacceptable for a moral standpoint for them as fans to support a team that's coached by a guy who they feel definitely was in the wrong and made a lot of bad decisions. I think we can all agree, no matter what, with the police report, it was a bad night for everybody involved, and Chris Beard is not exonerated from all of it. How bad it got, I'm not going to get into that. And like I said, I understand why people would not be for the hire. And then I also understand the people that are willing to give him a second chance because he is really good. So what do you guys think?
Hell, we gave Bobby Petrino a second chance too.
Yeah, little different situations, but I mean, I hate to go too deep into Chris Beard because you've kind of said this, but right or wrong, I don't think we touch him. And again, I'm like you. I can see both sides. I can see people who I can totally understand why people would not want him to be our head coach. And I can totally understand why people would want to take a chance on him. I mean, I think from a pure basketball coaching standpoint, not talking about personality or allegations or anything like that, he is one of the best college basketball coaches in the country. I think, now that the page is turning and some of these old heads are getting out of the game, Rick Pitino's old, he's going to retire soon. Krzyzewski's gone. Roy Williams is gone. Cal's probably not going to be around much longer. I mean, Bill Self is probably here for another 15 years. He's coach number 1. I'm not sure that Chris Beard over the next 20 years, isn't going to be coach number two. Scott Drew's up there, Hurley. But Chris Beard right now is probably a top 5 coach in the game. So, yeah, from a coaching standpoint, he'd be a home run, but I don't think we'll touch him. And whether that's right or wrong, I'm not sure myself, and I can see why people would argue both ways.
I don't know what went into the hiring process at Ole Miss, but I can all but guarantee you they had a private investigator go through everything, do their due diligence, all that kind of stuff. Not advocating for what Chris Beard did. I am advocating for his coaching resume, and that is it. Chris Beard would make us a second weekend team next year. Not even lying. Like, if you hired Chris Beard, the fans would be back, the NIL money would be rolling in, and we would be good again. And he would be one that would probably stick around for a while. Off the top of my head, I don't know how old he is. What, like 49, 50?
Yeah.
Like, he could be here another 20 years. I don't know if he wants to be coaching when he's 70, but he would be one that I would not say no to. If we called him and said, hey, do you want to be the head coach here? And he said yes, I wouldn't even call anybody else. I don't know.
I mean, I think he, if we called him and asked him to be the head coach here, I think he would definitely come here.
I don't know what his buyout is. It's Ole Miss, so I'm all but guarantee you it's not that much. I think his is 3.5. I could be wrong. It's somewhere around there, but Ole Miss doesn't value basketball, and this is my honest opinion, Ole Miss was the job that took a chance on him. That was the only job that he was going to get, so he took it. And now he's up 17 on Musselman, about to go 17-3. So in year one.
Okay, so my final thoughts on Chris Beard are I'm going to trust Josh Hurd to do whatever because I see both sides. That's all I got to say about it. That's why he gets paid the big bucks and has the heavy as a head that wears the crown, because I understand the polarizing aspect. I will say, if you don't pursue a guy like Chris Beard and he is interested, you better have a really good coach lined up. So that being said, we're going to move on. I am going to try to go quick because my daughter is not doing well up there without me right now. Will Wade. This is another one that Trilly Donovan, when I asked him in Discord, and his Discord, the burner, by the way, for all of you that are willing to pay $6, it's great content. He responds to every question. He's very connected and has no problem updating people as he gets information in that Discord. So that being said, I asked him. He told me to add Will Wade as somebody that would be interested in the Louisville job. He doesn't know how much Louisville would be interested in him. So we obviously know he's got some issues, but we'll go over his resume. Coaching tree, Shaka Smart, Ty Elliott's favorite guy. That's funny, Ty. Ty loves Will Wade, but he's going to say that's why Shaka went. I don't think he was at VCU yet when they went to the Final Four, but I'll have to look that up to make sure. His overall record is 207-98 for a 68% winning percentage. Currently 17-2 this season at McNeese State, who McNeese State was 11-22 last year. So he's immediately flipped that record. I know McNeese State is not a great school and a great conference, but anytime you go from 11-22 to 17-2, like immediately, that's impressive.
I don't know. Southland's got some dudes in that conference.
His tournament success, won Sweet 16 in 2019 with a 25-5 overall record that season. Additional information, he had a top 5 Ken Palm offense in 2020 and 2021 at LSU. His defense struggled those years. In 2022, he had a top 5 defense. His offense struggled. So his pros are that he's high energy, he's young, he's fiery, he's a competitor. Great recruiter at LSU, and I put 3 asterisks behind that because we all know why he was a great recruiter at LSU. We don't have to beat around the bush with that. He is 41 years old. Like I said, he's young. He's a potentially quick rebuilder of a program. The question is, and the cons and weaknesses is how much what is his ceiling? Because he did make one Sweet 16, but at LSU, he also had some very mediocre seasons, and he either got first round exits or he just didn't make tournaments. So it was hard to know because I feel like as soon as he started to get it rolling, there was when he made a strong ass offer and got a strong ass firing. So the biggest weakness is that he has a show cause. So if you hire a coach with a show cause, especially a school like Louisville, who just got out, just got out of the cloud, as people call it. You got to do a lot. Like, I know you got to do a lot of compliance training. You got to, I think you take fines. I know recruiting wise, you have restrictions. Connor may know a little bit more, but I don't want to get too.
Luckily, I haven't had to deal with show causes, so I have no experience with that.
No experience. I just know you got to jump through a million hoops, extra education. You do get some scholarship restrictions if you bring somebody on with that. The counter argument would be, hey, people pay players through NIL. Now, obviously, the coach did it directly. That still can't happen. But I mean, there's probably loopholes that Connor knows about, but we're not going to talk about those either. We're just going to say, as Louisville fans, that we want our coach to be clean within whatever rules. So if a player's getting paid, we want it to be through NIL, the legal way, the right way. And so that's the question with Will Wade is, I think it's different than Chris Beard, because Chris Beard, I totally get where people dig their feet in and say, like, what he did is unacceptable. I get why people feel that way. And Will Wade, I don't think it's that big of a deal now, what he did. I just don't. I mean, you're paying players now. It's kind of like how Kelvin Sampson got fired at IU for sending text messages to recruits, and like a year or two later, they changed the rule and said you can text recruits now. Nobody's holding that against Kelvin Sampson now.
No.
The only problem is that show calls and the PR perception. You hire Will Wade, you're initially going to take a PR hit of course, Louisville would hire him.
Yeah.
Slimy is slimy. You're going to hear. I don't care about that. I care about winning. As long as you're within the rules now, which includes paying players, I don't care. My 4 criteria: history of winning. He has some. It's a little iffy. That's probably the one that I'm a little bit skeptical and leery on. Addicted to basketball is number 2. He is addicted to basketball. Number 3, embrace the limelight. He absolutely will. He's a fiery, charismatic, fire and brimstone dude. Cultural fit to the program. Any UK fans watching will laugh and say, yeah, he's a cultural fit because you cheat and he cheats. But I'm serious. He would be a great cultural fit as far as our fans. Once people got over that stigma of hiring a guy with a show cause. Do I think we'll do it? No, I don't. But I think he'd be interested. How about you, Pat?
Yeah, man, I've got mixed feelings. I go up and down about Will Wade. He's kind of like May, but we've seen what he can do at the Power 5 level, and it's kind of a mixed bag, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. There's some of those LSU teams where I thought he had crazy talent, and they didn't really succeed, especially in the postseason. But he's 41 years old. He has won at both the, mid-major, now the low major, and the P5 level, not consistently at P5. So, again, he's got a very high ceiling. It's just hard to talk about him because even though I do not hold anything against him for what he did, I have a feeling that Hurd won't touch him, specifically because of the show cause. If the show cause wasn't there, I think he'd be more of a player.
Connor?
So out of the list, my top 2 are Chris Beard 1, Will Wade 2.
And Connor works in compliance. He works in NCAA compliance. I love it.
I actually had this conversation yesterday about Will Wade with some basketball coaches. The reason McNeese is so good this year is because of LSU. They have LSU donors that are donating to McNeese's NIL because the LSU donors are pissed that they fired Will Wade. So I know that's helping recruiting. He was fine recruiting LSU. It'll be easier to recruit here. I don't know how many of you all watched the game the other day against Corpus Christi, but Corpus Christi is good. Corpus Christi has been good for years in the Southland. I think what was it like? They haven't beaten Corpus since like 2012 or something stupid like that, and then they go and beat Corpus at Corpus on Monday night. Will Wade's lost one game this year because he didn't coach the first 10.
Oh well, he's lost one. You're correct. Well, I don't know. No, I don't think he's lost any, Connor.
Yeah, I think
even better.
Came before he coached.
He might have lost one at the very beginning, but I don't think he has. I did see in here that B. Crossfield said Wade has a jerk personality like Cronin, not looking for a nice guy, but someone who at least isn't a jerk to me.
Well, then we don't want Will Wade or.
I will be honest. I looked a lot into Cronin, and I didn't look as much into that part of it with Will Wade. So I don't want to sound like I'm praising one guy and condemning the other for it. So if that is true, I'd have to see for myself how bad he is. But if he has that similar type of like anytime he loses, it's everybody's fault and he throws his players under the bus, he's a jerk in the PR, like, just obnoxious sore loser type. That is an issue. So I'll look into that more because I don't want to like I said, I want to be fair to all of them, but because I'm pretty high on Will Wade right now, besides that show calls, but I have admittedly not looked into that part of it.
Isn't it only a 1-year show cause or is it a 2-year?
Somebody told me it was 2, but I don't know.
If it's 1, and for some reason I think it's 2, but if it's 1,
it runs till June 21st, 2025.
Yeah. So yeah, man. Yeah.
Shit. Well, there goes that idea.
I don't think it's going to happen, guys. All right, we're going to move on quickly to this next one. This is not somebody that's on the list.
Oh God!
I didn't include it, but Pat loves this guy. Pat actually wrote all this up and wanted us to talk about him. So Pat, I'm going to let you take this away. Like I said, this is not somebody I've heard linked to Louisville. I don't think anybody has really talked about him in Louisville. And I don't even know if he wants to go anywhere. We'll go ahead and get into Grant McCasland. Go ahead, Pat.
All right. Yeah, I doubt this is a guy that we're really, really looking at, but it's a guy that as a college basketball fan, you should pay attention to and watch. And I think in 2 years from now, he's going to be getting big time offers. Grant McCasland was an assistant coach under Scott Drew for 8 years. He was actually on the same staff with Jerome Tang. He's at Texas Tech his first year now. In his career, 170 and 80. He coached D2 for a while in junior college, was very successful there too. And he's 15-3 this year at Texas Tech. He has been to one tournament with North Texas, and he won the first round, and he was the NIT champion last year at North Texas. So he doesn't have much Power 5 experience. This is his first year in the Power 5, but he's a quick rebuilder. He's been at Arkansas State. He was there for 1 year, took them from 11-20 to 20-12. Took North Texas from 8-22 to 20-18, and then built them in 5 years, I believe, to a tournament contender every year, which it's hard to make the tournament in their league unless you win the conference tournament. And now he's taken Texas Tech from 16-6 to 15-3. He's been described as a tireless worker with a fiery attitude. And he hit the transfer portal hard this year, so he can rebuild a team quickly and is willing to turn over a roster. Obviously, first year at a Power 5 program, so a bit of unknown. There's not as much data, lack of NCAA tournament experiences as he's been in the probably more. North Texas is now a mid-major, but when he got there, they were probably more of a low major. And again, he's turned them around. He's had a couple top 25 KenPom defenses at North Texas, a top 20 offense this year, so he can kind of mix it both ways. And he's won 20 games every year he's been a head coach other than the COVID-shortened year in 2021. Not a guy that I think is going to be on the list right now. I think if he's successful in March and the rest of the year at Texas Tech, you'll probably see his name pop up, maybe not at our spot, but at some big time jobs. And he's a guy, I want to read this quote. This was written by a guy at North Texas after a few years there. Quote, "It all goes back to the culture and identity he and his staff have established since arriving at the program at summer of 2017. There's a famous video clip that circulates sometimes from a practice that first summer where after watching a poor ball screen coverage, he stops play and tells his players, quote, 'I don't want to win 15 games. Am I clear? I want to win a championship. You have to go over the top if we're going to win a championship.' And he went on to say, 'I'm not interested in being average.' And then from then on out, that's his first year at North Texas. From then on out, he won the CBI tournament that first year, went 21-12 next year, and then won 3 straight Conference USA titles. That is the type of stuff I want to hear from our head coach, man. He will not accept losing, will not accept winning 15 games. He wants to win championships. So, again, I don't think this guy is at the top of Hurd's list, but it's a guy we need to watch out for if he has a successful rest of the season, and a guy on the national stage that I think we're going to be looking out for over the next couple of years.
You know who his point guard was last year?
Yeah,
All right. So
Tyler Perry.
we're going to rank these guys now. Let's not count McCasland, but we're going to rank these 6 guys. I'm going to try and make it quick because we're an hour and a half into this, and we still got to talk about Lamar a little bit. We'll touch on the football schedule a little bit, but we're going to really we're going to expound upon the football schedule next week. I think we're going to push that, but we'll talk about Lamar. But first, I want to get into the rankings. I'll start with my rankings, and I'll explain them because they're a little bit that they don't reflect how I feel about the coaches as coaches. Let me say that. I have Chris Beard last, and it's not because of coaching. I don't think we're going to pursue Chris Beard. So, like, me ranking him, like, I don't feel like I can rank a guy who I don't think we're considering because of moral stuff, because then I have to take a stance, and I'm really in the middle on it. Like, I don't like the domestic assault stuff. I don't like it. I don't like that it's lingering. And I don't like that that's going to be a thing that we have to even worry about, which I know another coach that you don't think would do it could very well do that. But we don't know what people will or won't do until they have a history of it. Then we kind of have to be worried about it. So it's not coaching. It has nothing to do with it. I just don't think we're going to pursue him. So I've got him in the back. I'm not really even going to rank him. It's almost like an NA, not applicable, if that makes more sense. I don't even say it's that he's last. He's not applicable. Will Wade, also not applicable to me. Trilly told me to touch on those guys because they did have interest, but I just don't think we'll hire them. So it's almost like I can't really rank them if I don't think they're even potentials because we're not going to be receptive to it. Now, again, all this information doesn't come from within our athletic department. They're not talking right now. So you have to connect with people who are connected to these agents and coaches and hope they know what they're talking about, or at least if they don't, they don't. But, that's all I have to go off of. So I don't think we're going to pursue Chris Beard, at least not hard. We may put feelers out. If he puts feelers out first, we may be a little – I don't know. I just can't imagine. I just can't. And I know people are saying we put up with Patino and this and that. Well, no, we didn't. We got rid of him. And we can agree or disagree with that, but that's what they did. And I know it was shady. I know about Bevan and overthrowing the board of trustees and all that. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole with all that. I'm just saying we did get rid of him. And the idea was we weren't going to bring somebody back like that. I'm not saying I agree. That's what happened. I don't expect them to then turn around and bring a guy like Chris Beard in. If they do, like I said, I trust Josh Hurd. If they do, I'll get behind it, and I'll get behind the decision, and it won't be hard because he's a hell of a coach. But that's a decision I'm not, able to make, and I just don't think we're going to consider him. Will Wade, I don't think with a show cause, I don't think we're going to consider him. I love Will Wade. I'll tell you what, if Will Wade didn't have that going on, I would have him way up on the list too. So those two guys are out. So I start with number 4 then, because there's 4 left. I'm going to put Dusty May at number 4, and it's because of the IU stuff. That's the biggest thing. I have no interest in a coach that I think we're going to lose within a couple of years. I have none. And some people can agree or disagree. I think he seems like a really good guy. I think he could be a great coach, but I think it's going to take him a little bit to build a system at a Power 5 school when he hasn't had to recruit at the level he will here. He'll have to get a system and culture in place. And I don't feel like we have enough time before that job opens up there. And I also don't want to deal with I'll be honest, personal reasons that other people can't relate to. I don't want to have to hear about every damn day how they're dominating with Dusty May, and they took him from us. Now, they took him from us and he laid an egg. That'd be kind of funny, but I'm not willing to take that chance. And I don't want us to have to turn around and make another hire. I want us to be the destination job that we damn well should be in basketball. So he's number 4. Number 3, I've got Mick Cronin, which is going to bum some people out, the Cronin fans. I'm not boning for Cronin, and I'm saying nay to May. So those two, I'm just not on board. Cronin, I talked about it earlier, but you have to have 4 traits for me to be a successful coach here. A history of winning and success in a tournament. He does have that. Addicted to basketball. He most certainly is. Embracing the limelight. I don't think he does a good job of that at all. And cultural fit to the program. I think he would absolutely cave under pressure of the fan base, of the media. I think the fishbowl mentality would absolutely have him and the fans at odds. I think players will have a hard time buying into his system with the portal right there, where you can just enter the portal anytime you're upset. I picture Mick Cronin being like, if you're not tough enough, if you want to be a sissy, enter the damn portal. And the players will go, okay. And they'll all enter the portal. So I don't really want to take that chance. And, you can call it being soft, being weak as far as this generation of people, and that they need to, be torn down to be built back up. It doesn't work like that anymore. There is a way to do that, but I don't think it's the way Mick Cronin is doing it anymore. I think he would have been – I mean, he's an old school coach who needs to change his ways, or he's going to get lost. And I think he's already starting to get lost this year. Number 2 is going to surprise people who know me very well. I've been a huge Eric Musselman fan. One of them here since Chris Mack became our coach. But I have Eric Musselman number 2 instead of number 1. I have Eric Musselman number 2 because he is a little bit older. He does move around a lot, and it makes me a little bit nervous. But number 2 is not bad. I would love Eric Musselman at Louisville. Let me make that very clear. I think it would surprise my closest friends because I've been such a huge fan. I think they probably would have assumed I would have had him number 1. But history of winning, he has it. Addicted to basketball, he definitely is. Embracing the limelight, he'll do it without a shirt on. Cultural fit to the program, absolutely. You hire Eric Musselman. I know some people don't want Muss. That's fine. I know some reasons why they don't. There's others I don't. But I think Eric Musselman here, everybody would get on board once you saw how he recruits and once you saw the jolt of electricity he would inject into this dead program. He is like administering CPR. He would do the chest compressions. I hope he doesn't do mouth to mouth. I don't want that. But he would bring us back to life. And that leads me to number 1. Despite his lack of experience as a head coach, Jerome Tang, Tang Gang, what he's doing right now, and I know not literally right now, he's probably losing because he was earlier, but what he's doing.
I think they came back.
Well, there you go. What he's doing right now, flipping rosters, getting everybody to buy in, winning with a team that has had injuries, wrongful dismissals. He checks so many boxes as far as cultural fit. History of winning, that's his biggest negative on my big 4 because he just hasn't had enough experience as a head coach. But he has won in what little history he has. Addicted to basketball? I don't know how addicted he is. Does he put basketball above everything? I don't know. Embrace the limelight? He absolutely does, and he absolutely would here. I have no doubt. Cultural fit to the program? Absolutely. And before people say it's just about winning games, personality doesn't matter, I don't agree with that. I never will. I'll put it that way. Obviously, it's about winning games. And there are coaches like Rick Pitino that can win anywhere they go. There aren't many Rick Pitinos out there. A guy like Chris Mack can succeed at Xavier. He could not do it here. A guy like Mick Cronin, I'm afraid, can't either for a lot of the same reasons, except even on a worse level, in my opinion. That being said, that's my list. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like you. I don't want to go into Wade and Beard.
You don't want to wade in the Will Waters?
Yeah, because there's especially Beard because
Drew's not interested, Noel.
I just don't think
that's why he's not on my list.
We'll touch them. I mean, if you're talking from a pure basketball standpoint, I don't got to worry about their stuff. I mean, Beard would probably be number 1 on my list. Wade would probably be number 4. But if we're talking about those 4 main dudes, and by the way, McCasland would be number 3. But if we're talking about the 4 guys who are main candidates, I'd probably, my order is going to be similar to you. I'd probably go 4 with May, just because I'm scared of the floor, and I'm scared of if he is good, IU takes him, and that combination just doesn't work for me. It's like you can't come in here, have a chance to be bad, but if you're good, probably going to leave. That's just a bad combination. Number 3, like you, would probably be Cronin. I think Cronin would do well here. I think he'd get us back to a point where we needed to be. I think there'd be a chance that he could get us back to a Final Four, maybe a championship. But again, if things go bad, it's going to be a mess, I think, with Mick Cronin. And we can't have things go bad, obviously, but we definitely can't have another, 2-year, 3-year thing where a coach goes ballistic and quits, which I don't think Chris would do. Mick would do. Sorry, I was thinking about Chris Mack. But I think it could get messy with the media and the fans if things don't go well. So that kind of leads me to the top 2. And I go back and forth on these guys daily.
It's hard. I do too.
It's hard because I think the thing that makes Musselman so attractive to me, and I said this earlier, and I think you were probably peeing, Kyle, going to check on your daughter, but
both, not at the same time, but yeah.
Whoa.
The floor for Musselman is extremely attractive to me because I think he comes in here and he immediately gets us back to the tournament, Sweet 16s. I think, and we've discussed this in Discord, I think winning, no matter who you are, is going to bring the fans back. But I think before a game starts, you're going to sell the most tickets if Musselman is our coach. And that's exciting to me because next year, the first game, I want to go in there and I want the Yum rocking. And I think with Musselman as our coach, it's going to be rocking. Tang, I'm so impressed with what he's done, with how he's dealt with adversity, I think is why I go back and forth with him and Musselman. You've got to deal with adversity here, and he's done it extremely well at his short time at KSU. Now, how does he deal with the adversity of losing? We haven't been able to see that yet, but that's a good thing. He's not losing. I'd probably today, and this would change probably tomorrow, I'd probably go Musselman number 1 and Tang number 2. So Musselman, Tang, Cronin, May.
How about Jarek Muscle Tang, a hybrid? All the best features of both, none of the worst.
That would be great.
All right, Connor, what's your list?
mean,
Hold on, real quick. Noel, I did see your comment, and then I'll let. My list. I don't know if you know who Trilly Donovan is. I'm in his Discord, the burner. It's really interesting. You should check it out. Right now, Louisville sources, if you hear it, you're hearing things out of Louisville. They're on complete lockdown. They don't want anything happening except just to get through the year, keep things airtight. So you kind of have to find people that are in the agency and coaching national scene. And for me, that would be a good source. So I went to him with my list of 4 people: May, Tang, Musselman, and whom I'm listing off of there, somebody, Cronin. And he said that add Will Wade and Chris Beard as people you just briefly talk about, since they do have some interest. He never mentioned Scott Drew. He doesn't have Scott Drew on his potential movers list. And Scott Drew has turned down huge jobs time after time after time again, not even entertained them. He loves being at Baylor. They just built a new arena that he pushed so hard for. They just completed and opened it. Like, they literally just opened it like 2 weeks ago.
They played like 4 games in it, maybe.
Yeah, and that was his baby. That was his doing. It is not as easy as, hey, we're Louisville, so we're just going to grab Scott Drew. I would absolutely talk about him if I thought we had any shot, but there's just a lot that doesn't add up with him being interested. But I hope I'm wrong. I'll be the first to come on here and say, hey, I guess I was wrong. Anyway,
yeah, I think Scott Drew is Baylor's Denny Crum. You know, he got there, and I think it's his program, and he wants to build it. And I don't see him leaving.
If Scott Drew was on the list, Scott Drew would be my number 1. And I think that's everybody here and everybody that like talks about Scott Drew.
You're welcome, Noel, anytime.
He would be everybody's number 1. Like, far and away, not even close. If Scott Drew is interested, he would be number 1.
So speaking of it, what's your list, Connor? What's your top? Top 5.
You know my 1 and 2.
Beard and Wade. That's right. Yeah, you did say that. Who's after Beard and Wade?
So Beard would be 1, Wade would be 2, and then watching the Arkansas game right now.
Oh, you can't be a prisoner of the moment. They do stink this year. That's true.
Listen, they're playing my number 1 candidate, and they're down 27 points.
Oh my, that is a bloodbath. I guess I shouldn't. See, that's the thing. I can't use the term bloodbath with Chris Beard.
Yeah, not good.
I'm not even trying to. I'm just like, I'm trying to tiptoe around things, and then I could step into some words on accident. I'm not making fun. I'm just saying.
But
you gotta be careful.
If you take those top 2 guys out, it's Tang, Musselman, Cronin, May. Like, everybody's list is the exact same. Like, as much as I like Eric Musselman, we're seeing that his style doesn't always work. It's great to get transfers out of the portal. It's great, because what you need to win in March is experienced guard play. But if you don't have guys that have been around you for more than 5 months, your system's not gonna work all the time. Like, right now, they're down 69-43, about to be 72. Like, I would love to see it. I would love to have Eric Musselman, because his energy. Yeah, well, Eric Musselman, Chris Beard, and Will Wade are obviously not going to happen.
You're talking about, okay, sorry, I misunderstood. That's my fault.
Like, if we could get Will Wade, Chris Beard, I wouldn't say a word. I would be ecstatic. But it's not going to happen. So, Tang, Musselman, Cronin, May, but getting Eric Musselman would put a pulse into the fan base that we don't have right now.
Absolutely.
And so would Tang. But I can see the justification for taking Tang over Musselman, but I can also see the justification for taking Musselman over May. One has more head coaching experience, the other one doesn't. Whatever. They both use the portal. Portal's good, portal's bad. You have to be able to balance the high school recruiting out, and I think Musselman has more high school recruiting ties, as we've seen, than Tang at this point. But I would still take Tang 1 and Musselman 2.
All right. So I'm jumping right into this so we can get going here.
It's past my bedtime. Shit.
I want predictions real quick for the Ravens versus the Chiefs. Lamar Jackson, our guy, is in the biggest game of his entire life on Sunday. And to be the man, as Ric Flair said when I was a kid in the WWE or WWF when I was a kid, you got to beat the man. To be the man, you got to beat the man. And Patrick Mahomes is the man. So real quick, what are your predictions, Pat? I know you watch religiously like I do.
Yeah, man. I think it's interesting because a lot of the times you get rematches in the playoffs, and these teams didn't play during the regular season. It's going to be a test. Kansas City's defense is extremely good. Their offense actually is pretty average. But you have, the current GOAT of active players in Patrick Mahomes, so you can never count him out. But I think, he's got to go up against the best defense, and not just the best defense, but probably one of the best defenses of the past 10, 15 years. And it's hard to prepare for Lamar. So I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be terribly high scoring. I'll go 2017. I will say one observation from last week, and I think you're going to agree with me, Kyle. Lamar didn't look particularly great in the first half last week.
You can't come out that slow.
Yeah, you can't come out that slow. And I think if Kansas City watches film, what they're going to try to attack is they're going to try to bring pressure in the middle so that the pocket collapses. Because Lamar this year has turned into an amazing pocket passer and being able to move around the pocket. And something he's obviously worked on. He doesn't just bail. And Houston did a great job of collapsing that pocket, bringing up pressure up the middle to where instead of going outside or stepping within the pocket, Lamar was backpedaling. And Lamar backpedaling is what you want as a defense because that's when he's at his worst. So the adjustments in the second half by both the staff and Lamar were awesome last week, and I hope it continues this week. I think they told him, hey, man, if they're bringing that pressure, go ahead and take off. And also they started a lot more. They had a lot more quick throws in the second half. Had a lot more quick options for them. So I'm hoping that carries over to this week because I think they'll see similar pressure. But I think low scoring game 2017 Ravens.
Connor,
Mark Andrews is back, baby. I feel good about it. We know the script. We already know it. It's purple and red in the Super Bowl. It's going to be Ravens Niners. Hopefully, and I just looked. It's supposed to rain all day on Sunday. There's like an 80% chance of rain in Baltimore on Sunday. So the Ravens are going to run the ball. The Ravens are going to do what they're good at. I think the Ravens end up winning that game 28. I don't want to say 17, but I think it's 28-17 Ravens. Lamar goes to the Super Bowl, plays the Niners, and he fulfills his draft night promise to the Ravens.
So My prediction, I think the rain's not going to impact Kansas City. I'll be honest, because they have two really good running backs. I mean, they have a really good running game, which you wouldn't really expect. Like, you don't hear about that with Patrick Mahomes. You think air raid, but really they haven't been this year for the most part. The receivers have struggled some.
The receivers suck.
He played well, but here's the thing, though. Patrick Mahomes is kind of like a Michael Jordan type. Like, he'll will you when it counts them. And Tom Brady, like, he'll take a team that has no business doing what they do and make a big run with them. And that makes me nervous. It does. I don't think the rain's going to really slow Kansas City down as much as I hope Baltimore's defense does. It could make things a little tricky on those receivers catching the ball who have struggled to do it. There is that. So I guess that could be. I think the thought is, like, if Baltimore runs the ball and Kansas City runs the ball, obviously Baltimore is going to win because they run the ball better. But I would say Kansas City has the second best defense in the country or in the NFL behind Baltimore. And I would also say their running game is really good. I don't know the numbers. I don't have them all the time. I know Baltimore's the best running offense in the NFL. I know that. But I do think Kansas City can hang. So it's a number one run defense. I know Baltimore is, versus a really good running offense with Patrick Mahomes behind the center. So if we win, we're gonna have to play our best game. We as in Baltimore, because I'll go where Lamar goes, unless he goes to the Patriots, and I ain't fucking doing that. No offense, Patriots fans.
Yeah,
I'm not doing it.
Belichick's gone, so it's fine.
I don't care. The stench never leaves. So anyway, I ride with Lamar, so I think as long as the defense plays fun the way they have been, and Lamar's going to have to play his game, and he's going to have to be on top. He can't start slow. He cannot start slow, not in this game. That's important. And you have to, turnovers are abundant when it rains. So whoever gets the most turnovers is going to win. That's a great equalizer on the road too. If we turn it over, that road or that home field advantage is completely gone. So you can't do that. I'm going to go, it's going to be close, man. I'm going to go with Baltimore 27, Kansas City 21. And we go to Super Bowl to play the 49ers. And I'll give those predictions at a later time. And guys, we'll wrap it up tonight with the football schedule. Very quick. I don't think we want to get too into this really at all, other than to say I think we kind of got screwed on bye weeks. I feel like, if it's my understanding, unless I read it wrong on Twitter, it's my understanding that Clemson and Miami both play us after a bye.
And Stanford.
Yeah, well, Stanford, but we better just beat Stanford. If we lose to Stanford, we got problems. But Clemson and Miami, that's tough, man. Does look like we play on Saturday every game except
Boston College.
Boston College on a Friday night. So that's awesome. And I hope I can go to that Miami game in particular, but I might get season. I might pony it up this year and get season tickets.
I might have tickets for you. I might have tickets for you if you don't get season tickets.
Okay. We'll see. I'll be at the games no matter what, the ones I can make for sure, which I don't live super close. So, and I'm having a little one. There's just times where my wife's working, I'm not, and I have to figure out what's going on with her. So all that aside, I do want
to take her to her first game this year, dude.
I might do it this year. I think she'll be old enough. That being said, do you guys have any quick thoughts on the schedule? I shared mine. I thought we got kind of screwed on the buys, but I like that we're on Saturdays.
I'm just mad that as of right now, I can only make it to 2 games.
Yeah. Wait, when's your wedding? What game?
It's a bye week, baby.
Oh, wow. You got luck. That kind of sucks for Discord, though. In our Discord, if somebody gets married during a big game, we win it. We win the game. We beat Notre Dame, and who else did we beat? Miami?
Maybe.
I think it was Notre Dame and Miami. We had two different Discord weddings, and during the game, and we won. So
yeah, see, I'm gonna trick my wife into renewing our vows on the UK U of L game.
Yeah, but your wife's a UK fan, so good luck with that.
I know.
She probably won't want to benefit. You're going to have to trick her. That's right. You're going to have to trick her.
Are you going to put her in a zone like how you did?
I was going to say, if you really want to trick her, just go zone. All right, guys. It's been a pleasure. I should have said it earlier, but feel free to like and subscribe to our channel if you like this content. We did kind of mix it up with the coaching list tonight. Wanted to do something new. I know everybody's getting sick and tired of the same old with basketball. My voice is starting to go out anyway because it's still not fully back. So apologies for the raspiness, but please please subscribe, provide any feedback, constructive criticism as well if you feel like it's warranted. We're all ears. So with that being said, you guys have any final words?
Chris Beard's up 30.
Chris Beard, yeah.
Connor loves watching TV while we're on the pod.
Yes. I'm locked in, baby. I'm like Lamar, locked in.
That's right. No, I'm pumped for the Ravens game. Go Lamar. And I'm looking forward, whether I'm on the episode or not, next week's episode where we do a deeper dive into the schedule. I think that'll be a fun episode too.
Cool. All right. Well, that being said, guys, I'm gonna tune in to Tang Gang, see what he's up to, and feel free to let me know where I'm wrong or where you disagree with my coaching list on my Twitter. I'm Kyle Spire on Twitter, by the way. Or you can just leave it on the Third Banner Pod Twitter. Let us know. Anyway, with that being said, guys, I'm gonna end it with a Go Cards.
Go Cards.
Tang Gang.